Hello everybody, Andy here again. Well, today I had one of those experiences that made me realise I don't know quite as much about my hometown as I thought I did, and I thought I was fairly well up on this type of thing. I bought the local paper, which I don't always do nowadays, but that's another story, maybe for another time, and it had an article in there which sort of made me sit back a little bit actually. I think I mentioned in a tweet or something a while ago, for those who follow me on Twitter or maybe on Facebook or whatever, about a guy called Alan Turing, who, for those who don't know, and I know the link that I put up before, a couple of people in America said, "Oh, thanks very much for that, I've learned quite a lot." Well, Alan Turing was a scientist, I don't know what you want, a mathematician or whatever, and he was around in the sort of Second World War, and very famous for being at a place called Bletchley Park, where during the war the British had this sort of secret place where they were trying to decode all the German U-boat messages and some of the German communications that were all coded, and trying to break the code. The Enigma machines, which you might know about, there's a film called Enigma a few years ago, and it was set in Bletchley Park, and it was all about that. At the time, obviously, it was very, very secretive, but Alan Turing was one of the main people behind actually breaking those codes, which in effect won the Allies, if you want to call them that, the war. And Churchill famously said of Alan Turing that he was the man that really won the Battle of Britain for us, for the Allies. So a very, very important man. He then went on and was talking at the time about using mathematics and the possibilities for computers and computing, and so he's been thought of as the sort of the father figure of modern computing as we know it now, and what we're all doing here. And unfortunately, what happened with him, I don't know too much about him, but I'll come to that a bit later on. But unfortunately, what happened, he, at that particular time, he was a homosexual. So being gay in those times was not a good thing. And he was caught and he was prosecuted for indecency or something like that. And he was given two options. I can't remember exactly what the options were, but the one that he chose, I think it was either prison or chemical castration, and he took the chemical castration route, which seems a bit barbaric, doesn't it, nowadays? And so he had that route, but then he got depressed and all of his work suffered, although he still had these great ideas, and he ended up actually killing himself, committing suicide by lacing an apple with cyanide, taking a bite out of the apple, or eating the apple and committing suicide that way. And there's one of those sort of popular myths, whether it is a myth or not, no one really knows, I don't think, except for maybe Steve Jobs, because the Apple logo, Apple computers, are thought to come from that particular apple. The Apple logo, which I'm sure you're well aware of in one form or another, is an apple with a bite out of it. There you go. Once again, the suggestion there being that that's a mark of respect for Alan Turing and all that he did. Anyway, to cut a long story short, hopefully, the article in our local paper today was about the fact that Alan Turing, in his younger years, from when he was about the age of 1 till 9, when he went to boarding school, lived round the corner from where I live now. I can more or less see the house that he lived in from my back window. Now, to me, I find that quite amazing. And then the article was also saying about a campaign that's been put together by somebody in Hastings who I happen to know, one of those other coincidences, on Facebook, and I put some links on my Facebook page, and I'll probably put a link up here actually for anyone who might be interested, for the blog and also the Facebook page that Dean, the guy who's running this campaign, has made. And the idea is to get a blue plaque, which we put up on buildings over here to recognise the fact that so-and-so's lived there. I've got a building literally just before the one that Alan Turing lived in, a great arch over the road, and in that particular place Rudyard Kipling stayed there, and H. Rider Haggard, anybody who knows this, the film or the book certainly of King Solomon's Mines, that's the guy who wrote that. He used to live around the corner as well in this particular building. I think he wrote that particular book there. But it makes you realise, as I said before, how much you don't know about where you live. Now, I'm pretty inquisitive. I like to learn things. I like to read up on things. As you may well know, I have a wide range of interests and things. So if someone like me is unaware of something that was literally happening around the corner, okay, well before I was born, etc., but in my town, something that I take a lot of interest in, it makes you wonder how other people find out. Now, if you're watching this, you've got one of the greatest resources that the world's ever seen, if not the best resource that the world's ever seen for actual learning. But I am continually perplexed, surprised, horrified maybe, I don't know what the words are, that people, even on the internet, I see videos by people, I see comments by people, not necessarily on my videos, but we've all seen it out there, of people, and they displaying their complete ignorance of even things that are going on in their own country, yet alone what's happening in the world, and also that ignorance that people who, say, live in Britain know about what's happening in Europe, or, to use another example, Americans don't know what's happening outside of their country. And this can be relayed to anybody. You know, there's people all over the world who have great ignorance, whether it's one of those cases that they don't want to know. But if they don't want to know, I find that baffling. But that's just me, maybe. But if people are using the internet, there's usually that curiosity. Why are you using it? Especially, once again, as I said, if you're watching this video or you're on YouTube for the same reasons as me and using the internet in similar ways, if I know you or have come across you on the internet, I'd be surprised if you weren't inquisitive in some form or another because of what you're watching and what you're doing here. What made you come here in the first place? Maybe it was that inquisitive. We didn't all come on here to watch porn. I'm sure we didn't. Maybe someone's going to correct me there. But, you know, and the things that you come on the internet for, you know, is it because of that inquisitiveness? And even so, if you did come here for something in particular and you haven't gone off, you're not inquisitive about what else is out there. I find that strange. And it makes me worry a bit about where we're going, and that with kids nowadays and what they're taught, what they know. Kids are, I see it all the time, are pretty ignorant about certain things, and yet they know so much about other things. Other certain topics, historical subjects or whatever it might be, aren't taught, whereas other things are, and you can't really see the logic. So I don't really know where this is going. I was just putting that up just to show that we all have those ignorances, whether we know it or not. I try and do something about that, and I wonder what other people do, whether you care. I mean, there's that issue. Does it matter? Do I really need to know that Alan Turing lived around the corner from me, or that H. Rider Haggard lived there? I find that interesting. I find that quite amazing that people like that have lived where I live. I'm lucky I live in an area which does have a lot of history to it, has and still does attract a lot of people to it. But there's history out there everywhere. You don't have to know about the history of your own town. You've just got to be inquisitive about what's going on in the world, even if it's within your own country. Once again, I'm amazed that people don't, say, read newspapers. They're a bit out of touch, I suppose, now, newspapers, aren't they? You know, with the business of video I made recently about the media and newspapers, etc., called Free, and where that's leading us, a lot of people aren't reading newspapers, but they're getting news from other sources. Once again, if you're on Twitter, if you're online, if you're on Facebook, you're getting links from all this type of thing as well. And once again, you can just trawl the internet and do a Google search on Wikipedia and all that sort of stuff. It's all there if you want to know it. Yes, we can be selective in what we want to know, but there's nothing wrong with that. You're still learning. So there you go. Something that's baffling for me, but I'd love to know what other people think. You know, how you feel about this. Do you think there's a general level of ignorance around now that there wasn't years ago? Maybe we've been taught differently. Maybe it's that attention span type of thing. Maybe it's the sort of dumbing down of news, etc. You know, if you do watch TV, if you do watch or read the newspapers, should we say, magazines, the rise of celebrity magazines, and you know, even the BBC News, which I hold up to be a very good example of how news should be done. Even that, over the past couple of years, the TV news has been dumbed down. We're getting more and more celebrity type stories coming on, and you see things in the news and you think, well, that's not news as far as I'm concerned. I don't really want to know about that. There's always things you don't want to know, but to me, that's not news. That's gossip, should we say? Scandal, you know, trying to make a bit of scandal or gain a bit of publicity, notoriety, or whatever it might be. To me, that's not news, but that's another issue. Maybe that's what puts people off learning, because they turn on these programs to see things. You watch documentaries on the TV and they trivialise the subject, or they make you feel like a complete imbecile that you can't add two and two together. The way that they have to put it all together and have to have flashy graphics and stupid reenactments of this, that and the other with loads of background music, which completely puts you off. It puts me off. I had so many programs that I've thought, oh, I'm going to watch that program, that sounds quite interesting, and you get put off and you can't be bothered. In the end, you just turn it off because it's bombarding you. You have to wait till the last 5 minutes before you actually learn anything, and I have to commercial breaks, and after every single commercial break they have 5 minutes catching up and going over and over and over everything that's already been said before. I know that they're dealing with probably the lowest common denominator, but I think they treat us as idiots, as imbeciles as well, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe you get what you deserve in the long run, but there you go. I'm going to leave it there, I think so. Thanks for your time. I shall speak to you again soon. Goodbye.